Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The title of my talk is Gullele Botanic Garden, History, Current Status, Opportunities, and Future Plans. The outline of my presentation is introduction, the establishment of the garden, location and description, core functions, opportunities, and future plans. A botanical garden, as you all know, is an institution holding documented collections of living plants for the purpose of scientific research, conservation, display, and education. This is a depiction of what I had already described. Efforts to establish a botanical garden in Ethiopia to us is started in 1970s, but it's not so long compared to the 400 years of anniversary of the Oxford Botanic Garden. So that the idea was started in the 1970s, and it didn't really go far. And it was reinitiated in 1986 by the staff of the National Herbarium at the university, and it was not successful. In 1999, I think we really worked in collaboration with Addis Ababa City Protection Authority, and then we established a team, looked for a number of sites, and one of the sites that was selected was the current site, the Gullele Botanical site. It was established by a consortium of Addis Ababa City Administration and Addis Ababa University on 705 hectares of land by Proclamation 18/2002. Gullele Botanical Garden is located only 4.5 or 4.3 kilometers away from the center of Addis Ababa, as you could really see it in the map. It is not far from the city center, and it was also one of the reasons why the site was selected was its accessibility to visitors, its proximity to the city, and relatively high plant diversity, and huge elevation differences between 2,600 and 3,000 meters above sea level. Addis Ababa is a highland city, but the garden is almost 400 meters elevation differences from the bottom to the top part of the garden. As you would really be able to see, what you see in front of you on the right is the botanical garden that is very close to the city. The main road, there is a big main road that passes adjacent to the city. And if you really see the land use type, we have about 5 land use types in the garden. We have the city interface. That was the main road that you've really seen previously. Number 2 is where we would have infrastructure buildings. And number 3 is where we will have artificial garden for ornamental plants and other plants. Number 4 is a scenic forest, a forest where we have the natural vegetation, but people would have access to this part of the forest. And the 5, the green one, is nature reserve forest, where nobody is really allowed to just move in and out. As much as possible, it is protected, but people still would go, but it is not going to really be visited by many every day. The core function of the garden, like any other garden, is conservation, research, education, ecotourism, access to the public. Now, when we really started the development of the garden was almost over 90–95% covered by eucalyptus plantations that were introduced from Australia. Emperor Menelik in the 1800s brought seedlings or seeds from Australia because there was a shortage of fire in the city when he was establishing one, and himself and his wife. And then the whole outskirts of Addis Ababa was planted with eucalyptus, and that was what we were really looking for. But when the garden was established, there was a deliberate effort to really remove the eucalyptus plantations by human labor, using equipment to dig, not to dig deeply, but cut it from the top, and also debarking the trees. So if you really cut it and debark the trees for 2 to 3 consecutive years, the plant would really die. Eventually, this will give rise to indigenous plants to come out from the soil bank. And this is a successful effort that you would really be able to see in the garden. Now, currently, the Gullele Botanical Garden is almost over 70% or 80% covered by Juniperus procera, a native juniper that is common in the highlands of Ethiopia. But among the juniper, we have a number of native trees also coming out from the seedlings in the garden. And when we started the garden, we also started to really develop horticulture, and there was an effort to have a nursery development. And you can really imagine removing the eucalyptus is a challenge, and to make the area good for the plantation is another task. And then I think lots of efforts were really carried out, and now we had successful nursery development in the garden. We also have other horticultural development, as you would really be able to see in the lower part. And we also have side roads within the garden. So there will be access to the garden itself. So when we really started the research, we just said, how many plants do we have? How many native trees do we have? How many native species do we have? So when the garden was established, there were about 950 different plant species, 700 of which are native. Of these, 61 are endemic. The rest were exotic. Currently, this number has increased. Both the number of native or indigenous plants and also exotic plants has increased currently. We also have developed in the garden, as part of the research, was we try to really develop a thematic garden with various functions. We have medicinal plants thematic garden, aromatic plants garden, native plants garden, and we have a spice plant garden and succulent plants garden. So in this, what we really do is we have brought seedlings, plants from different parts of the country, mainly from the highlands, because Addis Ababa is a highland, and we really grow different plants in this thematic garden. But I would just like to really give you a focus on the native plant stem on the lower left corner. That's where we would really like to introduce plants that are threatened, plants that need to be conserved, plants that are endemic and threatened in the wild. So this is really a big thematic garden that we have. So we also have ornamental plant stem. In this, we have introduced plants, but we want to really focus on indigenous plants also as part of the ornamental plant stem, because we have a number of monocot plants like Coniophias, aloes, and others, and like crinum, and so on and so forth, that are really used as that could be used as ornamental plants. We also established a wetland development. We have small streams in the garden, and as part of this stream, we actually collected water, harnessed it, and introduced native plants, native wetland plants, and now we have a wetland development within the garden, and it is possible to really see wetland plants, and they also improve the filtration capacity in the garden. As part of the botanical garden, we also have a greenhouse. It's not a big greenhouse, it's a small greenhouse, but all the same, it's a greenhouse. And associated with it, we have a small meteorological station where we record temperature, humidity, rainfall, and other environmental parameters that would help us to really record the various activities in the garden. As part of the garden development, we also have infrastructure development, mainly access roads. I think we spent a lot of time in having the access roads to enable people to really move around the 700 hectare in the garden. We also have some other important infrastructure buildings, and the one on the left is called Agora 1, where this will be a meeting place for all visitors. And this has a number of cafeterias inside. It will have also a museum inside. So people would really be able to really see various activities in this building. On the right, this is a building that's being developed that's mainly devoted for research and also office for people in the garden. This is where we would have the herbarium that's devoted, and this is also working, this will be working in collaboration with the National Herbarium in Addis Ababa University. And as you would really be able to see, both buildings are environmentally friendly. Most of the materials used are from local sources, including the paintings. This is an entrance to the garden, and the entrance would definitely show you, this is to really show the eucalyptus leaf, because we cannot, although now we're really removing the eucalyptus, but that is a symbol that was really used for the garden. And also that would also really be able to really see on the roof of one of the buildings. We also have some soil conservation activities by building trenches, heat light terraces, micro basins, check dams, landslide protection. We're not successful yet, but all the same, we have really started, because to have an area with an elevation between 2,600 to 3,000 meters that was covered by eucalyptus plantations, I think we really need to do a lot of soil conservation, and we are doing that. We also have conservation teaching. It's not only conserving the garden, but we also really bring in people from the different parts of the country who are taking care of small gardens in various universities. And this was partly organized by BGCI and Oxford University in collaboration with Ethiopian Biodiversity Institute at Gullele. We also encourage ecotourism and environmental education. The garden actually invites all students from elementary school to high school for a minimal entry fee. So students would really have access to the garden, and the Gullele Botanical Garden is also working with some selected schools to establish a garden in their schools. So children will be able to really grow the plants. We also have some interested people biking inside the Gullele Botanical Garden, so that would be an environmentally friendly recreation. So we would also encourage this. And over the weekend, we have many visitors to the garden. This is, again, the various activities by students visiting the garden. Okay, so environmental education is a theme, is a key to really promote conservation, education, and also bringing the future generation to the garden. We have a number of opportunities. We have increased network. We have collaborations with the Royal Botanical Gardens, Kew, and Oxford Botanic Garden in UK. We have Missouri, St. Louis in the USA, Ethiopian Biodiversity Institute, Botanical Garden Conservation International, International Center for Research in Agroforestry. These are collaborators, but we also have additional collaborators. We have taken people mainly from the Addis Ababa city administration to visit the Royal Botanical Garden, Kew, where they were able to see the greenhouses, the horticultural rooms, the GIS offices, and you can imagine this big greenhouse compared to ours. So they were really impressed, and since their visit, their support to the Gullele Botanical Garden has been tremendous. And we want to continue with this. Unless you convince policymakers, research alone wouldn't take you anywhere. We also had invited partners, as I said, from UK. This was the director, Richard Deverell, the current director of Kew, who visited us, and a number of really other people that also from the garden and also from the USA that gave us some suggestions to really revise our strategic plan. So we really encourage people to really come and work with us. And Kathy Willis, the deputy director of Kew, was also here with us. We also organize botanical training, and this just shows Christy Shaw, the fifth from the right, from the left, and the second from the right is Ben Jones from Oxford University, that they were really interacting with young staff of Gullele and other institutions giving training. This was also part of the training in the greenhouses in nursery development. The way forward for us is to establish training programs with courses focused to diploma level students, including our own staff. In so doing, we are really popularizing horticultural research activities in botanical gardens, and also establish a permanent ecological site in the Gullele Botanical Garden, because previously it was covered by eucalyptus plantations, but now it's covered by native plants. And hence, we want to establish permanent ecological sites to really see the change from eucalyptus plantations to the native plants in the next 100 years. We don't have to see the end, but we got to start it now. So those of you that are really attending this workshop, I hope you would be interested in this endeavor. So if you are interested, please communicate with us and we'll be happy to collaborate. Thank you.